This was not a normal production. In this movie, there was no leeway, ever. The first time I read a Punisher comic was when Marvel sent over the Garth Ennis Welcome Back Frank series, and I read it in just a couple hours, and then I called Marvel and committed to the project.
Well, 20, maybe we can do a steady thing in there.
The first thing I knew about anything was what the budget was. We're gonna do this $28 million movie. Oftentimes you can go back to the studio and say, look, we've evaluated what this is gonna cost. So the first number you had in mind, unfortunately, was a great number, but it's not real. We didn't have that luxury on this.
I was under such time constraints. I had to do this entire picture in 50 days, which is half the number of days most action pictures take to shoot.
I know that this material can be done in 2 nights. I've done this too many times to...
It's just that the summer nights are shorter.
Right.
The sun comes up earlier and goes down later. The other thing is that just so we know, I'm not gonna, we're not gonna have time on these nights to break for a meal. We'll break.
I decided that the only way we were going to be able to deal with that kind of stringent schedule was to have all the action sequences very tightly storyboarded. I hired a storyboard artist, Mark Messenger, 9 months before principal photography.
Let's try to get some specificity here and precision right from the get-go.
It's traditional on every movie to have a production meeting at the end of the pre-production time. So we came up with a plan that every week, all of the heads of each department would go through portions of the schedule and talk about in depth and at length all of the questions that they had.
When we do hit Castle, that punch comes in, does he fall back?
We do an outward shotgun blast on the guy's back.
How big would this combined Tampa PD and FBI task force be?
It had a huge effect on how things went. Never done it before, and I certainly will do it again if directors that I work with are willing.
This will all give us food for thought. We will attack Kuwait.
In the original script, there was a big battle scene in Kuwait, and we had everything in place, and we just couldn't afford it.
The sequence was specifically designed to show why Frank Castle is the man he is as the movie opens. The powers that be decided that it was unnecessary to the telling of the story, and they asked me to cut it. And I said, you have to understand, the entire script was based on this early event in his military career.
Jonathan had to go through this heart-wrenching decision about whether he would lose Kuwait. He took Kuwait out of the movie.
Okay, on the day then, if we're talking about first shot, we need to have our crane and everything ready to roll over here. When we say action, that thing has got to, the Thomas chain on it, has got to come down perfectly.
The great thing about Tampa is that it is a city that we haven't seen on screen before. It's virgin territory. It has a great waterfront, and it allows, certainly for the production, to use the beaches there as Puerto Rico.
This is an isolated area of the Puerto Rican coastline.
Tampa was the most shootable city. There's no residential apartments in the downtown. No one lives there. So when people come out of their office buildings, they go home to the suburbs, leaving the vertical downtown deserted. So you can come in there on the weekends or at night and have film crews running rampant up and down the cities with no crowd control problems or anything. Trying to do that in Manhattan quadruples or quintuples the cost of production.
They flat out gave us a lot of stuff. They helped us with offices and studio space, and that was a huge difference and a huge help in terms of dollars.
So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, this is it. This is my weapon. It's Punisher Butterfly Knife.
Butterfly Knife.
I'm going to change my name to Butterfly.
Here we were looking around, and there were sort of the usual suspects, just big guys. And we were interested in a guy that on one hand, yes, could carry the physique of the Punisher, but was more important to understand the motivation.
Bang! No. This way. Yes! And let it go. And I'll let it go too. Oh, yeah.
Thomas Jane embraced Frank Castle in a way that astonished all of us. We started shooting in August. He started training in February with Navy SEALs. He took his body, he took his own athleticism and sculpted the Punisher from the comic book.
It was a professional athlete schedule, every single day for the next 3 months. It didn't come without its challenges. There was probably 5, 6, 7% body fat to come down. Sometimes he would spend 8, 9 hours a day working out between martial arts and training, and he would come in the next day or the day after ready to go again.
To get the chance to bring a guy like this onto the big screen is it's just overwhelming, frightening, because you just want to get him right. We have to stay true to the comic, because that's what inspired us to make the movie in the first place, you know? We have this incredible character, so why fuck with it?
Is video back up?
So guys, let's have about 10 background standing by for this, please.
Very thirsty.
Speed. Quietly, and action.
I really like the tradition, of action filmmaking that kind of went through. It was Sergio Leone, then adopted by Clint Eastwood, and then kind of melded into Don Siegel, and then kind of came out the other side. That whole tradition that those three guys laid down, I'm an enormous admirer of.
When you deliver that first line, then you stop, you were batting your eyes. I like that steady stare.
I like the tone, I like the simplicity, I like the honesty of them. Those are the pictures that I watched when I was a kid. I like to get close, and then I like to get wide. This is the classic Leone style. I mean, he goes from wide establishing shots that set up the geography, and then he gets really tight.
Cut. Excellent.
We have seen a jillion gunfights before, and usually it's ultra slow motion, it's incredibly frantic camera movements. Jonathan wanted to slow everything way down.
What I'm asking is, do they pierce frame and then we start the move?
I have a particular disdain for all the recent filmmaking techniques that come from rock music videos and commercials, privileged POVs, I call it the nostril cam and inside the coffee cup cam.
The skull t-shirt, which was actually a flat graphic image. It wasn't this distressed painted image. It was not received very well.
They thought they murdered me.
Marvel had been very committed to a flat graphic image prior to the teaser, and then after I was able to talk them into having something that had a little more evocativeness to it, and I think this has served us really, really well. This coat is truly the silhouette I went after, which is the clean shoulder, the tailored waist, and the sculpted collar. And we knew we were going to be in Tampa, so we built in lots of ventilation. Every place you look in this coat, there is mesh that allows air to go through, because we didn't want Thomas to just expire.
There you go. Look at that. I'm in the right area.
I was told that, like clockwork, every afternoon the thunderheads would roll in off the Gulf. I did not fully understand how volatile the weather systems were going to be.
Tampa is the lightning capital of the world. That would be the globe, the world, not the United States.
The rain came in with alarming, spectacular suddenness. When you'd be right in the middle of a setup, you'd just have gone through rehearsal, the actors are warmed up, ready to go, and all of a sudden the rain is on top of you. So we had to be light on our feet and ready for anything.
They had more rain than they've had since 1890-something. It rained virtually every day. And given our short schedule to begin with, that was a real problem.
Jonathan Hensleigh has always written screenplays as if he was the director anyway. So his perspective as a writer has always been a director's perspective.
Just concentrate on those
A
lines.
little slow. I did a little too slow.
A little too slow, yeah. Yeah,
I'll try to speed up.
a little bit, but just enunciate each word clearly.
He wanted to put something together that was retro in some aspects of the action and of the shooting, but at the same time, something new to audiences. It isn't all about explosions. It isn't all about CGI.
He embraced the books, which is the key in our movies. Look at the comic books, look at the panels. If you love what you see, you can do it. If you want to change the world and change history, go find another movie, not in Marvel.
Cut! Great! 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 In that moment, there was a ruefulness. Excellent. Excellent. Look at it. I mean, good?
Yeah, it felt good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Castle Estate was kind of pebbly, rocky beach with a couple of gray bathrooms. Not really a family compound.
Some of this is referred to, if you want a visual clue on it, pages 1, 2, and 3.
I hired Michael Hannon because I wanted someone who not only had versatility, who was good at designing anything, but also someone who could bring it in on budget and had a logician's approach to it.
I came up with this plan, if I could get the palm trees to the water, put a lot of sand in there, and then build the other structures around this to basically make that Puerto Rico. The water was always right there outside the windows. There was an element of realism there that wouldn't have existed if we had done that on a soundstage.
My brother Okay, David, we're ready. This will be a rehearsal.
Gary had just done the Italian job. He's not a swaggering belt buckle kind of stunt coordinator. He brought organized reality to everything that we wanted to do, which was a huge help.
3, 2, 1, go!
Okay. Sonny, you could be even just a taste later.
They practiced it to know how much they should pull, how far the guy should spring his legs to carry over the balustrade. All these different things that you need to master to have a stunt look natural. And so he really nailed the stunts on the first time, almost every single time during the show.
Sonny, are you ready? Yeah. You got a spotter by camera? Okay. 3, 2, 1, go!
You okay?
Yeah.
That was a good one. When I lose the job.
Like, if you get hit in the leg, do you go down? I think the first thing to react would be all your weight would be off that leg. You would either be hopping or you'd go down. Yeah, but it won't affect the rest of your body, just remember. So if you got shot, bam, that leg takes reaction.
Right.
Shot with a
9mm. Step up like this. Fire. Boom. Click. Step up. Boom. Boom. Take it. Go down.
Come up to fire again, and then take one in the shoulder.
Come up to fire again. Take one again.
Let's stick with this.
Now I'm going over this way.
But when you're doing a movie like this, and it has a lower budget, and you have a shorter schedule, it's really tough on the cast.
What? We just couldn't see the barrel discharge.
Okay.
You're a little too closer. Still rolling.
I don't think anybody was fully prepared for shooting day exteriors in the Gulf region in the middle of summer. It was 100 degrees and 98% humidity, and it was quite an aerobic production because of the amount of hustling people had to do.
We went through thousands of cases of bottled water. We went over budget on ice. It was a very hot summer. How things went for the Punisher was how it was going to go for all of us. He would work 16 hours a day, and it's very, very difficult to keep that up for 50 days.
So in this shot, I haven't yet discerned that there's bodies on the period.
Correct. Cinema actors, their greatest tool, of course, is their face, but Thomas has an extremely rugged, experienced, masculine face. In the same way that older cinema stars who I admire, Charles Bronson, Steve McQueen, obviously Clint Eastwood, I think that that's what brought me to him more than a lot of young actors. Kevin Harris was the head of practical effects. He's Florida-based. I needed Kevin to do the mind-blowing on a much smaller budget.
Is it just as expensive to have the guy in the foreground being blown away as it is to have a guy being actually blown up on the boats?
Kevin did them for about a quarter of the price. One on the pier where Frank Castle is blown into the water. I truly don't know how he did it for the money. He saved my ass.
Wow! That heat is pretty much going to be your intensity. The look is just going to be a little bit more fuller. Those are the size of the fireballs. The only thing that's not in there is this phosphorus look, which will be in on the day.
3, 2, 1, go! Holy fucking shit!
We shot in a Port Authority building, which was home to cruise lines that dump their passengers off. It was a beautiful set designed by Michael Hannon.
The Rigoletto is playing on the stereo, and Dave will be adjusting, putting the needle back on, and we'll shoot it right over here. We see Castle being strangled, okay? We see the fight ongoing, and the people in here are totally oblivious to it. That's why it's designed like that. Yeah.
Like all movies, especially movies that shoot on location, you do not have the luxury of the comforts of huge, sound stages and so forth. And the minute that I walked in there and saw the stage and the set, I realized that it was going to be tough because there just wasn't as much room as I was hoping for. We made it work, and that's one thing that I love about working on films is that essentially all they are is just a series of problems that you've got to solve.
Conrad doesn't want to use another shot. And
No,
neither do I. Neither do I.
As an audience, I know.
Absolutely.
I know one thing that they don't pay much attention to things you don't show them. So,
the key to any good filmmaking philosophy is compromise. It's just a question of how much, when, and what to compromise.
Conrad, what I'm trying to do is figure out how to eliminate those extra 2 setups here at the end. To have them, pull them into a 2-shot down into it, and just get out of it with 2 overs.
I started to use the term triage. It's the process by which you forsake certain lives to save one.
So can we deal with what Castle is doing when he comes back from dinner? So I got a break in 3 minutes.
Here we go.
Those setups are going to take 4 hours, and we have 1. It was just the way in which the production necessarily went. The tenement apartment dwellers were very prominent in the Welcome Back Frank series, and I think that they had a great deal to do with my attraction. It just had this sweetness to it, so it wasn't just nihilistic. You had these 3 really disparate individuals. Rebecca Romijn Stamus, who's this former supermodel, and Ben Foster, who's this very serious young actor, and John Panette, who's really known as a stand-up comic. They had a lot of fun off the set, and it contributed, I think, to their chemistry on the set.
We're here on the set of The Punisher, where they're about to do a stunt dance. Rigoletto, this is a tough one. People may get hurt.
We're all having a lot of fun down here. It's a really easygoing set. I've already done a comic book movie. The character that I'm playing in this one is just this really sweet, downtrodden loser, as opposed to this like slick supervillain that I got to play in the other one. So it's complete opposite, It's fun.
I think that Rebecca really has a kind of mystery, which I think is the asset of every great actress. No matter how much you see the actress, you want to see more. You're wondering what is going on there, behind the eyes, behind the mask. You hook into Rebecca quickly in her performance.
And cut. Great. Cut. I have this. Rebecca, excellent. Great.
Couple boxers, table and all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just his height relationship to the bar, and that's he needs to be like here.
So 2 apple boxes are coming in. They'll be in shortly.
When you're making a picture with gritty urban realism, like The Punisher, CGI effects will not work because it will completely remove the viewer from the experience. it's going to have a 10 times more believable impact on the audience. And I'm glad we went that way.
I just sent a guy out to actually blow holes in these books. And what that's going to be is our post-destruction. There's a book here that's been pretty well torn up and ate up. Back, please. Fire in the hole! All these wires are connected to all the squibs that are throughout the set, different segments. Everything's tied together. There's 1,000 hits throughout the entire set.
3, 2, 1, go!
I had been looking around for a nightclub, and I couldn't find one, and so I was a little exasperated over that. But we walked into this big cube of glass that formerly housed the Bank of America. And I looked around and I said, well, there's not much here. And Michael turned to me and said, no, Jonathan, this is the nightclub. And over there, I'm going to erect Howard Saint's private area for his table. See those teller spaces right there in the center of the room? I'm going to build an elevated dance floor on that. He walked me through the whole thing, and I just turned to him and I said, well, now I know why I hired you. You're a genius. David Sardi is one of the great first ADs. You know, he's a career first AD. I feel like, you know, the fates put us together because I needed someone with his ability to anticipate and his vision and a discipline.
Where is he? What is he? What is this wall?
I mean, are we suggesting that this is a floor below?
He was just so integral to the entire process.
Look for the yellow X, please, and then we'll go right into salsa. Okay, here we go. And cut. Cut.
Yes, Mark. Background action. And action.
We have a tradition in the Marvel Universe. We think that our villains are not all villainous. So John had to go through a journey in this movie.
John Travolta is a perfect person to play Howard Saint because I feel that John always brings duality into his characters, and I think that Howard Saint, he's not a good man. I mean, we're evil, you know, but we don't know we're evil. We feel like we've been forced into the situation.
I think he relishes these types of villain parts. I think he really has a fun time playing them. He said that he was playing the part like an amoral, degenerate Roman emperor.
Well, villains offer you more freedom in their construction because villains usually are living life with more freedoms than your average fellow in regards to what is social and moral behavior. So in general, villains are very interesting to play because you have much more to feed off of. You have people that are secretly living however they want. They're responsible to no one, basically. So in some ways, they're easier to play than your straight and narrow characters.
This tower that has the burning torches collapses, falls forward, and lands hopefully just right in this area over here.
The last thing we filmed was the great huge explosions in the parking lot. It was then that it hit me that it was about to be over. And it was a very sad moment. As difficult as it was, the realization that it was over was not a happy one. I would have liked to spend a lot more time with those people making that movie.
3, 2, 1, go!
How's work?
Why is that gun pointed at me?
I wanted to deliver a picture to the audience of 2 hours or under, because I just thought that this subject matter didn't warrant a film longer than that.
What did happen to your Porsche, Jimmy?
I ended up in my first cut with about a 2 hour and 40-minute movie, and a lot of that material was taken up by a subplot that was cut entirely from the film, and that involved FBI agent Jimmy Weeks.
Okay.
It took up about 35 minutes. We were able to pull it from the film and not really interrupt the basic flow of the narrative and get the picture under 2 hours.
Ricordi sono? Sì. Vai ancora? Partito.
I had been given a sampler of composers that were within our budgetary restraint. I started listening to this very simple but very powerful composition. They said it was from an Italian film called The Flight of the Innocent. I asked for a meeting with Carlos Silioto. He said, I don't like American movies. I think they're all shit. And I said, okay, well, that's fair. But I showed him The Punisher, and he said, oh, I see. Sergio Leone, Sam Peckinpah, I like this. I'll do it. I wanted beautiful melodies that could be recorded with an orchestra that would undercut the darkness of the subject matter.
Music is an actor you don't see, so you can play different parts on it. It's the emotional part of the movie, so it's like to be inside the characters from the beginning of the movie until the end.
It's kind of hard to envision something like this. Kind of overwhelming. Really fun. A lot of fun. The chance to put Frank Castle on film is an incredible opportunity. You want the people that know him and love him to not be disappointed when they see him on film and go, that's not the guy I know and love.
I think we made him a more interesting hero. We made him sensitive. We spent time to show how much he loved his family.
I always viewed the material, the script, and the finished product as sort of eccentric, different from other action pictures. But people who love the film, that's what they gravitate toward, that it's not the same kind of viewing experience as one of these big, blown-out, $100 million CGI fests. I thought that that tone is one of the things that distinguishes the movie, makes it sort of off the beaten track. I'd love to work with Thomas Jane again. I think he was born to play this part. To the future.
You basically just do what you need to do. I thought the speed was good, maybe 2 miles an hour more if you're going to do the exact same thing. Just pick up just a little more before you let up.
And cut! Everybody stay back!
I wanted to get a little bit further around, and I thought there would be a little more delay on the button.
All right, good job, Donna. Bang! Right there. Oh my God. Great. You know what?
I mean, dead perfect.
Gary, this is awesome.
That was really just by chance that I ended up in this business. My grandfather actually was one of the original Keystone Cops and worked for Max Sennett back in the 1920s. But I really never had any aspirations of being in this business. I was a professional racer, and that's really where my passions lie. Actually, I started in the 70s as a stunt performer, then made the transition in the early 80s from a stunt performer to a stunt coordinator.
These high angles for a lot of this action, you know.
The reason why I wanted Gary Himes was because he was an extremely comprehensive, thorough guy and a true professional, and he impressed me again and again and again with his desire for preparedness.
We do have a limited budget, so it really involves being very well prepared, having everything planned out, both from a budgetary and a time standpoint. You pretty much have to have it together.
We got to be very, very precise here, okay?
We would meet throughout pre-production where we would discuss the boards shot by shot.
Okay? Yeah, it goes right through the door, and let's have the fist caught in the door.
I really felt like he was approaching the picture in a super organized way. He and his team just meticulously planned every single gag, every stunt gag.
One, go!
He took my anxiety away from the process. I felt like, you know, I had a real hammer in charge of that whole area of the film. It's one of the most critical parts of the film. It's an action picture.
What we're doing here today is we're just doing a little test jump to test the pressures in the shocks, front and rear, and just I'm in a jump harness, which this is part of. So we're just testing the car to make sure we have everything dialed. Okay. All right, let me go get some cameras, and then we'll videotape this. It was a good test. You know, the driver's really happy. So Gary is such a specialist when it comes to this kind of stuff. What I think is one thing, but you know, he's going to make the major decisions because this is really his forte. And so I'll just take the information to him, and we'll make judgment calls from there and adjust our setups again.
I said, we're not doing any CGI enhanced stuff whatsoever. We're going to do everything old school with real stuntmen, real explosions, real crashing cars. A lot of the time, when I watch a CGI enhanced stunt, I just don't believe it. It doesn't look real.
We're taking a very, straightforward, realistic approach where there will be no CGI, no digital effect shots in it. It's pretty much what you see in the lens is what you're getting.
Basically, the sweet spot for the gag is, if I have my choice, I'd have them right where they're set, but it's from the back wheel of the GTO to the back wheel of this little Buick. That is the range. So when you go up there, look at it.
We've assembled a wonderful team here. Overall, by the time the film's been completed, we'll probably have used close to 40 different stunt people on the film. we always try to bring in the best people for the job.
Okay, guys, so here's the briefing on what we're doing. This is a 5-camera setup, so far as I know, of the propane tank explosion. Mark is going to get ratcheted back and ignited and flying and landing on fire. Okay, that's the gag.
All right, Enforcer number 2, we're doing a little rehearsal to Enforcer number 2. This will be where he's hiding behind the grill, and Castle just comes out of his house and shoots the propane bottles, which explode and blow Enforcer 2 about 25 feet back.
He'll be flying through the air on fire, and that's it. Then he's dead. And physically on fire, if you do it right, it feels pretty good. When you do it wrong, it feels horrible. So we're going to do it right, and we got a good crew with me, and there you have it.
I know we got the brush.
You got your brush?
I have a brush.
I try to keep everything just as calm around me as I can, just it allows me to think. And as much as we plan for everything and account for everything, it's a bomb, and I stand on top of it, and it makes me think about some things. But it's good. It's good.
Hands first?
Yep, let's go once. Oh, it doesn't matter.
Right first?
Let me have some Joe. You hand those hands to Sean.
Let me see.
Sean?
Yeah, let me have a right first.
Just hand it to me.
Left first?
Sure. I got your towels.
That's right, buddy.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, buddy. I didn't see it. You're the hole.
Sure.
I don't need it, just take.
That's good.
You knew that about me, buddy.
Yeah, that's wild.
We'll go hot here.
Right.
And then we'll walk in.
Exactly.
And then
Once you go in and he's glued, because I want to roll it before you even exit frame.
Yes.
Okay.
That's fine.
Very good. Let's go.
Good, Mark?
Let's put the mask on and hook me up.
Okay.
Seconds away, guys. Seconds away.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1, go!
Hey, cut!
I said I'll say either cut or get in there.
Yeah, I know, and I was waiting. I was waiting for when I saw him say, man, I came in, so maybe I didn't hear. So.
Flyers. What's it? Flyers. No, it should be right here.
How you doing, Bob?
Fine.
Oh, great, thank you. Hey, and that's how it's done. Another day at the office.
When it comes to stunt work, you want most stunt people to be well-rounded. In other words, if you're doubling the lead of a film, you need a stunt person that pretty much can do it all. But there are those situations where, you know, if you're going into a car chase, and especially if it requires a very high level of expertise, as it does in our case, it necessitated bringing in individual people in certain areas for these very specific requirements.
Rick is on the 75. He's in there. He's protected. You know. Not the joke. But right. I understand.
The acid got away.
Absolutely. Yeah, that works. So as soon as just right as PI is passing you and the car, beeline back to your car. Get in close.
When we do a jump or a crash like this, no two are ever alike. I've done hundreds in my career, and each one presents its own set of challenges. On this, we wanted to go out and set the car up to absorb the landing of the jump. I tried to utilize several different techniques, both a suspension seat, utilize a suspension harness for the driver to prevent any spinal injuries, and then set the suspension up in the car as well to absorb the impact of the jump.
Bottom line is it just punch it just prior to liftoff, right? Okay. Just to get a little loft, you know, just to lighten that front end a little bit. Yeah. And that's it.
On situations like this, you draw from both experience
as well as there's a lot of intuitiveness involved as well. After been doing this as many years as I have, you kind of get a sense of things. We try to, take as much risk out of the stunt as possible. That's pretty much my job, is to try to look at anything that could possibly happen, prep for the worst and hope for the best. The bottom line is, if for any reason the car should go on its lid, anything happens, we'll have fire extinguishers standing by, pry bars standing by, you guys will be standing by, and in the event that happens, guys, cool heads prevail. I want it very methodical. I don't want to see a bunch of people rushing in there, okay? Everything, it's imperative, once again, everything goes on 3, 2, 1, right on go. The bridge needs to start, and Ki needs to come ahead to maintain the proper timing on that. Okay? Good. Thanks, buddy. All right.
Anything you can do, guys, let's start brooming everything back. There should be nothing on this road but the ambulance and the Great Hall.
Andreas, you have to be back by the car no more, because that camera up there will see you there.
If the car goes out of control, we're going that way. Okay. Hopefully it won't.
Okay, very good. Dane, are you guys 100% in the car? Yes, Ki is 100%.
All right, stand by. Let's start the engine. Stand by.
You guys, we're fully locked up. Chiba, confirm the bridge. Nobody's anywhere.
Here we go.
Okay, Martin, it's yours, and I'll take it.
Hey, here we go, guys. Pictures up. Let's roll video. And roll camera.
Here we go. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go! And that's a cut!
Very good, Chief.
Stay here! I know how Ki is right away.
Thumbs up on Ki.
Thank you. What? Once again? Watch this. Yeah!
This angle is excellent.
Yeah.
I mean, they all are.
Nice, brother. How'd you feel?
It was great.
Go for call.
Jump number 1, we might even do it again.
I think it actually worked out real well. You know what? I'm only as good as the people I have working for me, and I try to surround myself with great guys, so, my hat comes off to these guys.
Gary's been amazing. Him and his crew that he works with. I'm just proud to work with guys who are just that good, And when you work with guys that good, you want to give everything to it. That's what it comes down to.
Overall, we've probably used 3 different people to double Thomas Jane on the film. Not only car driving double, but my assistant, Mike Massa. Mike is doubling from time to time, and Mike Owen being his primary stunt double. So it does involve, it's a team effort. Mike, I'm gonna show you on this first one the path that when you take stand over my camera. But at the same time, there's been a lot of situations on this film where I would have probably put in a stunt double, but Thomas is able to physically carry out more, to do more within the film. He's really been a tremendous asset.
More so than any actor I've worked with in the past, Thomas wanted to fully portray his role in the film, and that extended to performing many, almost all really, of his own stunts.
And he spent a lot of time preparing for this role, both physically and mentally. He's in great physical condition. He's an excellent athlete.
He got probably about a year's worth of training from the tactical standpoint in a very, very short period of time and absorbed it exceptionally well. We started Thomas off with basic firearms training. From there we progressed into edge weapons, quite a bit of knife training, trying to give him as much information as possible where he can pick and choose dependent upon the situation within the movie, what he would like to use.
Thomas is extremely aggressive and ambitious with his character. He wants to feel what the character's going through, and therefore, by letting him do his own stunts and him wanting to do his own stunts, it even makes him feel that character even further. He's tough. He's one of the toughest actors that I've ever worked with. He's almost like, well, he is like one of us.
What? Yeah, the grenade drop was perfect. Hey, Thomas?
You okay?
Thomas? That was tremendous.
Consequently, Thomas has probably done 80 to 90% of the physical stunts within the film, which is very unusual, and it's a tremendous asset for us.
Generally, as a producer, it's the last thing you want to hear. As a moviegoer, on the other hand, it gives that verisimilitude. It gives that level of authenticity.
Right? And 3, 2, 1, door.
We hired Kevin Nash, a professional wrestler and also a very good actor, surprisingly good actor.
Hello.
To play the Russian.
We were inspired by the comic and the fight that goes on in the comic. It was really creative and great character. We wanted to utilize that as best as we could. Words that me and Jonathan came up with to describe the fight was a horrific clown show.
A storyboard artist and I worked in Los Angeles. We boarded all of the action of the entire picture. I had a fully articulated, storyboarded Russian fight sequence. I knew what I wanted. We were then able to give the storyboards to Gary Himes, and he started having rehearsals. And he found out that there were some aspects of the interior of the tenement apartment that could be made to better use. So he started adding things to the Russian fight sequence. And it just got better and better.
Charlie.
Kevin's incredible. We couldn't have done a lot of the stuff that we did if Kevin wasn't Kevin, because that stuff, it's like a dance, and if your partner can't dance, it's gonna look ugly. I was playing catch up with Kevin the entire time.
Kevin is an enormous man. I mean, he's 6'10" and over 300 pounds, but he was a basketball player, and thus is very light on his feet. He's very nimble. So he was able to control his movements and also the movements of Thomas Jane in this brutal fight. So when he had his hands around Thomas Jane's neck, for instance, they could give their movements a sense of tremendous ferocity and violence, but at the same time not hurt each other. Kevin not hurt Thomas Jane because he outweighs him by 130 pounds.
That's great.
I think that this was originally written to be a little bit more lighthearted of a fight scene, but Thomas's intensity was so good on it, and he does everything. I mean, I thought that there'd be a stunt double doing 90% of this, and Thomas is doing the whole fight scene. So, and he brings that when an actor like that puts that kind of intensity in every scene, it brings out the best of you too, and it's been a pleasure to work with him.
We kept wider than normal. We didn't rely on insert shots as much as other fight sequences. In other words, through the rehearsals with Thomas Jane and Kevin Nash, we had them do the fully articulated moves where you see both actors. And Conrad and I committed to filming it and letting the actors rehearse, getting really good at the articulated moves, and then stepping back just a little bit and filming it.
We picked up the camera in our hand and, basically chased the fight up and down all around these, apartments and tenements. The fight was really dictated by the actors because, I'll be honest with you, I've done a lot of fights in my life, but I've never done a fight in which 99 and 9/10% of the entire fight was done with the two principal actors.
That just really adds tremendous credibility to the fight itself. We're very fortunate. In fact, there was one instance where we have Frank Castle being thrown through a wall by the Russian. And originally I was going to use Mike Owen, Thomas's stunt double for it. Thomas said, think I could do that? Thought about it. I said, yeah, that'd be fine.
Do one of these.
pile drive through and leave early with your foot way back here.
So we set to do it, and in all my years, I've never seen anyone go through a wall like this.
3, 2, 1, action!
It was so powerful and so dynamic. I mean, you look at that piece of footage, it's so incredibly violent. I mean, I couldn't wait for them to say cut to get out there to be sure he was okay.
You know, it's first time tripping through a wall. You don't know what to expect. He's coming through the wall with high velocity, and he made it to the other side of the wall like we talked about. He was supposed to go to the other side and bounce off and come back, but his angle of attack when he came through was not what we expected, and I think it's what he expected. But still, he got his arm up, he protected himself up, and it looked very violent. It was a spectacular shot.
Bottom line is, if Thomas were to get hurt, it shuts the entire film down. So, you know, there is a fine line there. Part of my job is to recognize where we're pushing the boundaries, and I have great communication with Thomas. We'll discuss it, and then based on all the parameters, I'll make the decision if Thomas should do it or if it should be the stunt person. I would say the most dangerous stunt we did in that sequence was when they fell through the stair rail, hit the wall, and then tumbled to the bottom, which consequently ends up breaking the Russian's neck. I just wanted to be sure that, none of our guys broke their neck doing it.
Do I have anything on my face here, right here? It's a little bit sore, irritated. I don't want to itch it though. A little calamine lotion will be fine, I think. All right.
Bringing the Russian through the railing, the whole idea was to get a lot of energy going for it, making sure we make it to this wall, and making sure that from point A where we started to point B where we land, that we're in the position that the director wants us in. We decided just to go ahead and pretty much shoot the rehearsal and see what happens.
You can try to rehearse that stuff, but in this situation, Jeff's about a 315-pound man. Something did go wrong, and Jeff landed on Mike. Now we just injured Mike, with a very large man. So they just did the walk-ups together, make sure everybody's first part of the gag were in step and in tune, and that they can make it work together.
As soon as we start coming through the door, start your turn because
no matter what.
Turn.
Just take that reaction, just bring your hand across the face.
All cameras?
If you have
36?
36, 30. We're gonna hit sticks and we're on 30 now.
Okay. Okay, here we go. All right, set. Ready, guys?
Yeah.
Hold the ball. And roll sound, please.
204, take 1, off speed cameras.
204, take 1, A camera.
Okay, and 3, 2, 1, action! And cut! We have thumbs up, guys? Everyone all right? All right, we have a thumbs up.
You drove them all the way clear across.
Okay, cut their coffee.
Lauren?
Yeah.
Will you get that?
No, this is
I know. Sure. Tremendous.
Well, we got
Tremendous,
right
guys.
Right?
Very nice.
Okay,
Very nice.
so
Tremendous.
Nice job.
we checked the gates on this?
Yes.
It takes a very unique individual to become a stunt performer. If you look at the numbers overall in this country, it's much easier to get in the NFL or the NBA than it is to be a successful stunt person. There's actually less than 500 full-time working stunt people in this country, and people that work, 200-300 days a year. Whereas every football team has, 30-40 players on the roster overall, so, you can see there's a very small percentage of people who actually are successful or become successful in this industry as stunt performers.
And any questions, anyone? Okay, have a good, safe ride.
Roll cameras. BT. 3, 2, 1, go!
There has to be that underlying passion, of course, because, you can never ask somebody to put themselves in harm's way. That person has to, you know, they have to have that desire and that drive and that energy. I think that's great when somebody can actually, they accept the risk, accept the challenge, they have the confidence and the skill necessary to bring it to fruition, and they're very calm and collected about it. Those are the type of stunt people that we like to have around here.
F, please. Oh, great, great, great. That's great. Okay.
There's not a film
Very
that I
good.
don't learn something new on or find a better way or a different way. My opinion is no one person knows it all. I mean, yeah, you need a great camera crew, you need people that understand action, and you need, you know, it goes all the way from the ADs on down. You need wonderful special effects people if you're doing mechanical effects, gags, explosions. The bottom line is you're relying on the people that you're surrounding yourself with. And we were very fortunate. We had a wonderful team on this film.
Great job, Harry.
Nice.
Yeah.
Really
Great
good.
job.
Thank you very much. All right, now we got the tough one.
Okay.
Thanks.
The main purpose of having a poster is to just sell the film naturally. If you're going to have a huge wide release with the stars, you'll put them front and center. Oftentimes you'll focus on a cool image, an iconic image, just to sell that as the driving point of your campaign. We wanted to really bridge the gap between the Punisher comic book and the Punisher theatrical release. What better way than to have him rendered in that gritty, dark style that Tim Bradstreet does best.
I'm all about the iconic and the lighting and, you know, making this guy look like a complete badass, you know. And of course, for people that are familiar with my work, they know that this is not a stretch for me because it's what I did on the covers for about 30 issues, Frank and a skull.
Really what we want to sell is largely Tom as the Punisher and this wounded but enraged and dangerous guy. We just kept seeing all the attitude we were looking for in the Punisher in Tim's art.
Eric Lieb from Lionsgate was the guy who started this whole thing because he's such a Punisher fan.
We discussed initially that Tim would create a teaser poster sketched in his own photorealistic, gritty style that would be aimed primarily at the comics community and the genre community.
A lot of the look of the movie emulated or was inspired by Tim's art, so it made sense that we used Tim's art to represent the movie to audiences.
By me doing my version of Jane as the Punisher, we're showing the fans that we respect the material. My basic approach to art is based in photography. Once I find that best shot, then that's what the rest of the piece comes alive around it. Then I do my interpretation of that photo on like a vellum paper to really breathe life into it beyond a photograph and to really make it sing beyond a concept is, I think, really in the inking of the piece and how I translate it from there. I just try to take all these elements and tie them into one image that tells the story. So I like to show the moment before the action or after the action, but I don't really like to show the action.
Tim had an assortment of weapons, M16, all the way down to practically a rocket launcher. And just set up a photo shoot with Tom Jane in full costume as the Punisher, and just got a series of dynamic poses that really drove home the core of the character.
I pretty much approached it like I do any other photo shoot. We had everything, I mean, all the props for the costumes. The custom 45s with custom muzzle brakes, and these 45s were just sexy. Mostly it's just getting, you know, the chin, the lighting so that you get the cut across the cheek, or, you know, the eyes in pools of shadow. Kind of the things that I like to employ with my regular comic covers and just apply it to Tom Jane and this character. As a fan of posters, I see a lot that goes on, and it's an art form that is very incestuous. When something works, it tends to get repeated on a lot of different projects. So I really wanted to come from a different angle on it and do them in sepias, straight black and white, going for like a maximum pop. And then also very realistic colors for some of them, but toned down.
Tim was doing posters that were going to be in comic book stores and would be promotional items. Ultimately, they just started progressing into these great cinematic one-sheets.
It just kept getting better. And theatrical posters, my God, you know, I mean, yeah, sure, I'll do them, yeah. Getting a chance to work on the posters is such a dream come true. I'd helped to redefine the character in the last couple of years for this generation. And the fact that I was able to contribute to the film and see my work up in movie theaters all over the place is, I can't even tell you what a gas that is. And I hope it continues.
Marvel has 4,700 characters. You know, we have superheroes, we have mutants, and we have humans, and we have heroes. And Punisher is a hero/victim.
In 1974, I had been writing Spider-Man for about a year and a half. I created a character called the Jackal, who was going to be my behind-the-scenes mystery figure. And in order to keep the stories interesting, I had to have subordinate villains who would come in and operate on the Jackal's behalf. One of those villains was the Punisher. The Punisher was acting under the direction of the Jackal and attacking Spider-Man. He thought that Spider-Man was a villain, and he had been misled. In the course of that story, when he discovers the truth, he immediately drops his attack on Spider-Man. When I created the character, my thought was, he's a bad guy, he's a villain, I'm just going to let that happen. But as I was writing the story, I became more sympathetic to his point of view, so I said, you know, well, maybe he doesn't follow through on this. And as a result, you know, we had this little turn in the middle of the story where, you know, he recognizes what's going on and he turns against the Jackal and shows his sense of honor. At that time, I liked to draw little sketches of the new characters that I was creating for Spider-Man. I'm not an artist, so these were kind of inept little doodlings. For the Punisher, I drew this costume of like a black jumpsuit with a small skull on his chest. And I brought this to John Romita, who was the art director at the time. He expanded the skull, brought it down, turned the teeth into bandoliers, you know, made it look cool.
I was always looking for a different angle. I was always looking to try and make characters as different as possible and as functional as possible. I came up with a sketch, and I remember the name they gave me was the Grim Reaper, or maybe the Executioner. They hadn't arrived at the Punisher yet. Spider-Man was a vigilante. Captain America was a vigilante of sorts. Superman was a vigilante.
When you have a character like the Punisher, you're putting it right out there. His power is that he admits he's outside the law. Here we had a sympathetic character who was going around shooting people. For the most part, this was not behavior that was approved by the Comics Code.
Code approved was an actual stamp of approval on our artwork.
In the 1950s, everyone was very upset about crime comics and horror comics, and the publishers got together and decided, well, okay, before the Congress could step in and start censoring comics, they would go in and censor them themselves. You couldn't have heroes kill people. Heroes had to be good and brave and noble and great role models for kids, which the Punisher wasn't.
From the very beginning, he was a kind of controversial figure. As part of Marvel's expansion in the 70s, we were publishing these black and white magazine format comic book stories in which anything could go. And the Punisher was a natural for that.
They took him out of the superhero world, which he was forced to be in when he guest starred in Spider-Man, and they pretty much did straight crime stories with him.
That's when we really filled out his backstory, which gave him a motivation that explained his actions and provided a moral justification for his behavior. The Punisher was a Vietnam vet whose family was killed by the mob. They were on a picnic in Central Park. They happened to witness something that they shouldn't have seen, and they were slaughtered, and he was left for dead.
It wasn't his fault that his family was killed. He didn't do anything to provoke it. And then as he waits for the justice system to handle it, they don't. And he snaps. And he realizes that current society isn't punishing the guilty as adequately as he thinks they need to be punished. So he decides he's going to do it.
His initial motivation was to have vengeance on those who had killed his family, and then it just expanded from that. Once you kill those bad guys, what do you do next? Well, you move on to the next layer and then the next layer.
It became an obsession, a kind of madness.
My idea of the Punisher was that he was a guy who was driven by his need for vengeance, but was not so driven that he couldn't see what was going on around him.
His system of ethics, his moral code, is very different from most people, but it's specific and it exists. He doesn't kill innocent people. He has a benchmark for people that deserve to die, and he's going to kill them. But it's not an arbitrary benchmark, and it's not one that he violates.
Punisher, he has no special abilities. You punch him, he bleeds. Takes a bullet, he almost dies. He is totally vulnerable. Actually, as a man is on a mission to die, not to live, until he discovers that living is tougher and you have to be a hero to continue.
He is capable of heroism, like he's the kind of guy who would, without a second's thought, charge into a burning building to save a child. He's also, well, obsessive and insane and twisted enough to happily mow down 40 or 50 people in an afternoon.
I think later writers would bring in their own interpretation, and their interpretation was that he didn't have a total grasp of reality.
I had actually been trying to get the Punisher off the ground since, well, 76 was when I first, like I say, I first pitched it. And then in late 78, I started doing work for Marvel, and in 1979, they started doing miniseries, and I thought the Punisher would make a great miniseries.
I was working in a comic shop when the Stephen Grant, Mike Zeck miniseries first came out. It was Mike Zeck that people were familiar with from Master of Kung Fu and things of that nature.
I have to say Mike was the prime factor in getting the series off the ground, not me.
The first issue, Punisher's firing away with 2 guns, his mouth's wide open in a scream, there's probably spit flying. You couldn't help but pick the thing up. Everyone bought that issue. Everyone was freaking out about it.
They did something very special. They established him as a steady monthly character.
Came out on a Friday morning and was sold out everywhere in the country by about noon on Friday, and Marvel just went nuts.
I think when Stephen Grant took over the Punisher, he had time and he had insight and started really trying to flesh out this guy.
He was nothing but untapped potential. And I wanted to tap it, and that's why I thought he deserved his own comic. As far as I was concerned, he was no more heroic than anyone else in the book. So I don't want to make it sound like I think that he's a terribly heroic guy, because I don't, or that he's someone to emulate. But everybody likes, seeing somebody kick ass once in a while, which is the appeal of action heroes. The Punisher is a guy who goes out there and does that.
When I took over the character, which would have been around 99, 2000, I was really able to start again from scratch, take it right back to basics. There's no sidekicks, there's no armorer with all kinds of technology to help him out. There's no computer hacking, there's no teaming up with superheroes. The character was as grim and dark and humorless as ever, but what was going on around him was that little bit more grotesque, a little bit crazy.
He took the character and he really grounded him in the real world. This is what the Punisher would be like if he lived in the universe that we live in, as opposed to the universe that the Spider-Man character lives in.
The Punisher is by far the most grounded of all the comic book heroes, but he's still pretty larger than life. Tim Bradstreet's art really, really sold that.
The direction for the Punisher and my involvement with it was, at the beginning, just to come up with images that would sell the book and be interesting to look at. Centered on Frank Castle, the character. Iconic shots, every issue to look like a #1 issue.
Bradstreet's work is like looking at a photograph, whereas the other covers that you would compare it to from the other artists are more of looking at a cartoon. And it's arresting in the sense that it's much more theatrical, it's much more filmic.
They were a big selling point, and the ones he's doing at the moment are particularly nice. He's introduced a lot more story to the covers.
Straightforward, in your face, frank, skulls, guns.
I think of the Punisher as a Rorschach test for writers and readers. In each of the incarnations that he's had over the several years, since his creation, he's reflected the times that he was being written and drawn in. In the mid-70s, we were in a period of kind of cynicism towards government, so the idea of this figure operating outside of government was appealing.
Everything's cyclical, and we're kind of, hitting that point again. People are a little disillusioned and tired of the way things are working, and here's this guy who operates outside of it, and he's kind of our voice.
Punisher will always be center stage for the human hero of Marvel. It's something that we all relate to. Most people don't have the guts to stand for what they believe in because it's dangerous.
I think the most interesting thing to me about the Punisher and his popularity is that it came from the character. The readership discovered him as much as we did. That's when a character takes on a life of his own and becomes something beyond what his creators imagined him to be.